Hello and welcome back to That Music Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about movement props, what they are, what the whole point is, and why it took me so long to finally cave in and get some scarves for my classroom.
You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarvin, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Welcome back. I am really excited to talk about this today because I love movement. If you've been in my world at all or listened to my podcast or heard me present, you likely know that I am someone who absolutely loves movement, especially when we can put it into our lessons in a meaningful way. Not only does it help add musical context, but it just gets kids moving and gets them. It's so beneficial. So I have kind of this tricky relationship with movement props. And honestly, I don't know where it came from. I was years into teaching and I realized that I had never once thought about doing anything with scarves. I didn't have scarves when I came into my classroom. And I never really started. I never bought any, never tried it. And then I met Leanna O'Brien. If you haven't got Leanna's episode, you're going to want to listen to that one. She's amazing, but she is the queen of scarves. She's actually quite literally the CEO of the Soaring Scarves Academy. So why did Leanna change my mind? And first of all, if you've ever heard her talk, you know how she changed my mind because she is just one of the best speakers that I've ever heard. But she was talking about the whole point of that music is movement. And I think that is so true. I really do. And I think, the more that I got to understand about how she used scarves, rather, not as this way to replace anything, but as a way to enhance. That's really where things change. And it's not just scarves. In my classroom, I had a parachute, but I really didn't use that much. I had a stretchy band, but I really didn't use that much. I even have some ribbons with bells on them that I stole from my cousin's wedding at the end of the night because there were 50 of these dowel rods with a ribbon at the end that we waved them goodbye. And I'm I need these for my classroom, even though I had no idea what I was going to use them for. But I didn't use them a lot because I don't know if part of it was just I didn't want to distract them, or I didn't want to give them something in their hands that they could, cause me to distract me. So it took me a while. So let's talk a little bit about what kind of benefits I saw once I started using them. And first of all, I think giving that sensory exploration is really helpful. I mean, think about a stretchy band, right? You're being able to pull, you're pushing, you're having that, the tactile feedback. The scarves, you have, the different ways that you can feel it, the different ways that you can move it around and show that you can go fast and slow. Having that, the different textures and the visual tracking, all of that is really just great from a sensory side of things. And again, if you know anything about me, I'm really into the sensory integration. And I like this as well because I've noticed that my students that tend to get a little bit more anxious, maybe, especially when I'm asking them to do something, if I give them a prop, it kind of allows a little point of distraction, right? It's kind of like when you give a reluctant singer a puppet and have them sing through the puppet. They're not singing, the puppet's singing. It's kind of the same thing. Beyond that, the motor skill development of being able to do that, I think is really helpful. Especially, a scarf can be gross motor, it can be fine motor, it can be a combination of the two. And I love being able to create these overarching learning environments for my students, right? We're not just learning music. We're not just, singing or playing games or dancing. We're doing this huge, all these different things are coming into place. And so whenever we can have some sort of motor skill application, that is really helpful, especially at the early ages. But quite frankly, even at the upper ages, we still need to give students opportunities to develop both their fine and their gross motor skills, especially in a way that doesn't feel like we're doing that on purpose. I have a lot of students that have had, they had really gross motor or fine motor deficits. And when we get to that older grade, the difference, you start to see more of a divide. So by giving them a way that it's new for everyone, it's not, we're not just holding a pencil and writing, we're doing this brand new thing with this brand new prop. It kind of creates a little bit more of a leveling field and gives them an opportunity to put themselves out there a little bit more, because everyone else is learning it new. It's new too, or it's not something we typically go around doing all the time. So it kind of gives a little bit more of novelty and new to it. But let's not forget about the musical concepts. Like, this is a podcast called That Music Podcast. So we're going to talk about it because it's important. I think there are so many ways that you can use movement props to reinforce, introduce, and explore musical concepts. I mean, just think about tempo. Give a student a scarf and play them a fast song, and what are they going to do? They're going to move it fast. Give the student a scarf and give them play a slow song, and what are they going to do? Well, they're still going to do it fast until you model for them that they can show it slow, right? And allowing them to make that connection, especially if you find a song that has dynamic tempos, different. Especially if you can find a song that has a lot of contrast in the tempo. Maybe we're going from fast to slow, or something like in the Hall of the Mountain King, where we're starting slower and we're getting faster. This is a great way to show the connection of what we can see and what we can move into what we can hear. And if you noticed anything about those words, that is aural, visual, and kinesthetic. It really wraps everything all up in one package. And I think that is what I really love about things like movement props. Now, it doesn't have to be just scarves. Scarves are attainable. They're pretty cheap. You can find them at pretty much every elementary music vendor anywhere. But it could be something as simple as, I had a parachute in my classroom that was the old gym one that was kind of torn, and it was basically it was very janky, but it worked. It worked for what I wanted to do. It was able to still go up and down and left and right and fast and slow. It didn't look great. And I think when we're able to do something like that, that can be really helpful. I mean, let's be honest. We love parachute day. Walking in and there's a parachute on the floor is like the best thing. Stretchy bands can be great. I inherited a whole tub of these like defective hosiery that you can use, kind of like the stretchy nylons. And you can use those in different ways to create movement, to show movement, to create more distance. I use these a lot during COVID when we wanted to do some sort of activity that would typically be, holding hands, but COVID-wise, not going to happen. So instead, we're 6 feet away from each other, holding on to each other from the other side of nylons. And I think this is a great way where you can use what you have, make a plan for if you want to get more. But what I love about these movement props is the vast majority of them are not crazy expensive. Yes, if you're getting a really big parachute, a high quality parachute, it might run you a little bit. Stretchy bands, they're not the cheapest, but you could be as simple as the scarves can be pretty cheap. You can just go get some old fabric from a store. Maybe you find a clearance section or something, right? Just kind of cut some fabric there. The hosiery that I inherited, I'm sure those were bought very inexpensively because they were defective. And you can really make what you want with them. Beyond all of this, what I love about these types of props is that they change it up. They change up the lesson a little bit. They add a little bit more joy. If you have a kindergarten, if you played in the Hall of the Mountain King for a kindergarten class and you had them doing some sort of movement activity, they would enjoy it. They would laugh. They would smile. But if you give them a scarf while they're doing it, I promise you, there's going to be so much more joy in the room. And I think, yes, there's going to be a little bit more chaos in the room, but for me, the amount of joy that's been added is so worth the nominal amount of chaos that was added by giving kindergartners a scarf. Because what I love about these types of props is, worst case scenario, they fall down and they don't break. They're going to be fine. They're very inexpensive. They're pretty hefty. They're pretty heavy duty. And you can use them for so many things, so many different grades, so many different activities. You can really make these something that it doesn't have to be just one thing that you use. It's not just this one activity and then you put it in your cabinet for the rest of the year until you do that activity next year. It really can be something that you can use in so many different ways. And which can help with your classroom clutter too. And I think that's pretty important. So did I give you the best examples of using movement props? No. Who do I think you should listen to? Leanna O'Brien. We'll put the link of our episodes that we've done with her in the past in the show notes here, because she gives a lot more concrete advice. She gives a little bit more, she puts it a little bit more eloquently in her wonderful book. I always tell her, or in her voice, I always tell her if I ever read a book, I want her to record my audiobook. But putting that out into the universe right now. But with that being said, I hope you gained a little bit more insight on movement props, ways that you can use them, why are they important, and with that being said, thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you are having a great week. And as always, if nobody has told you lately, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of the students that you teach.